Good evening. It is 6 p.m. We are returning from an executive session where we discussed a personnel matter and some negotiations.
Andrew.
It's so nice to have everybody here. Welcome. It's always my favorite night when we have a full house. I would like to introduce Cub Scout Pack 4062 out of St. Edward's the Confessor. They're going to be joining me and assisting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening. Right there's good. Yeah.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minor shout out, all three of my daughters are in Scouts. I think it's a wonderful organization. And I'm so happy that it is both a daughter's and a son's event. I've been told that I am not loud enough, so I'm going to talk into the mic. I know it's...
Yeah, Neil is leading in to hear you.
Okay, so that brings us to our next comments. We have one board member who is absent, Augusta Miller, and we have another board member who is joining us virtually. I was noted on the agenda in the proper amount of time, and because we can see and hear her, she is able to vote, even though she is not with us in person. Because this is a study session, there aren't public comments, but you can come visit us at our next board meeting if you wish to say something. I don't have any announcements right now. Maddie, you want to go first? Cool.
Okay, so a lot has happened like within this past week. So this past Friday, we had the Science and Health Discovery Night where a bunch of different like clubs and classes and organizations outside of Shen came together and like shared like STEM-related activities with the community, and it was a really good event, had a really good turnout. Also, we have like the week of giving coming up. I think it's this week and stretching around where like we do cleanups outside. We have like positive message boards around. So that's like, it's like a really positive environment in the hallways. That's going to be happening. We also have the blood drive, which I think is tomorrow, or it could be today. This week, I'm not allowed to give blood yet, so I'm not in it. But the blood drive, so that's like a really good thing that they do, I think every like twice a year.
How old do you have to be?
You have to be 16 to give blood, and I'm not 16 yet. And then also today we had the job fair, which I had the opportunity to go to. So it was really fun to see like the different opportunities that not only like as a job, but there were also like healthcare careers there, so you could really like move forward. So it's been a pretty eventful week.
And did you go to the job fair during one of your school?
My transportation teacher allowed us to go look at the job fair, and a couple of other classes also went like during class, but it was open during lunch, so that's when there was the most traffic.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. It sounds like so many really good things are happening. Does anyone else have any announcements? Sure, go ahead.
Sure. So I just wanted to let folks know who may not already know, I've actually decided not to run for re-election this spring. You know, I only spent one term on the board, but I feel very close to Shen. This is my alma mater, so I know that for me this has been a privilege to be at this table, and I feel very confident that the district and the board will continue in very, very good hands. I know that I certainly am very proud of all the work that was done over the last several years, last 3 years, that I've been on the board, and I'm very, very excited about the Early Learning Center, so I will definitely be making an appearance for that. But, you know, things happen. My family and I had to make the hard decision not to run for re-election, but again, the district is in such great hands, so thanks to all of you who allowed me to be part of this, and I'll be around, so, yeah. And I still have a couple more months, so I'll be at graduation and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm sorry about your family situation, but we look forward to seeing you around. Yeah. Right?
Thank you. Yeah,
and spoiler alert, the other candidate is here in the audience, and I believe we'll be introducing her in a few minutes, so very exciting. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Mary Colleen is first, Deanna is second, all in favor? Okay, there we go. We gotta turn around. 6 in favor, motion passes. Superintendent's report, sir.
Thank you very much. So we have several presentations tonight, but before going into the presentations, since we'll be sending out information tomorrow, so the hot question of the week, even though it's on a Tuesday, is will we have off the Friday before Memorial Day weekend? And so as the students anxious to sit on the edge of their chairs, the answer is yes. I'm not sure what the parents are more excited than the students. For people who don't understand the concept, it's a collective bargaining agreement that if we don't use X amount of snow emergency days, there's the Friday before Memorial Day. This past year, even though we had some poor weather days, we actually only had one school closed. We had several delays, but only one actual school closing. So that Friday before, which is the 23rd, will be off, and will be treated as a snow day for students. And snow days are handled differently between 10-month and 12-month staff, and so they'll follow similar protocols. So HR will be sending something out tomorrow, and then we'll be communicating out with parents and the public hereafter, so people can plan their extended weekend, whatever they do on that weekend. So that's just one piece of news to share. I'm going to do one other thing that's later on the agenda, only because there's not a lot to it. The state budget process. If you watched the news last night, like myself, the governor announced that there was a deal, but the deal is in small letters and quotes because it was a solo announcement. She was there by herself. In other words, no other representative from the Senate or Assembly, which was like the first giveaway. Well, typically when you're announcing a deal, all the parties are at the podium together. And just today, the House was convening to approve or propose another extender until Thursday, May 1st, which is clearly an indication that we're close to a deal, but not a deal. And as one of the legislators used the term, we're not at the end, we're at the middle end. So whatever that means in politics, they're at the middle end. So with all that being said, we're hoping that by the end of the week, New York State will actually have a state budget, which translates to not actually having details until probably next Monday or Tuesday, depending on how little people work over the weekend to get all the budget bills read and all the details hammered out. And it's just a couple things that we are kind of watching closer than others. Free school breakfast, reason why I'm particularly watching that, we've had several Shen students, as well as Katie Headwell, who's our director for food service, in her role as state level has been really advocating for that. So we want to see the fruits of the labor of our students and our staff who've been advocating. We have been pushing for changes in the per pupil costs related to preschool. So hopefully it can be much more incentive for providers to want to expand capacity for preschool age students. So we're really pushing for that. The one that's been getting a lot of conversation and traction, and the devil is absolutely going to be in the detail, is the thing that many people are saying the reason why the governor has been holding firm, the bell-to-bell ban on cell phones. And at this point, quite frankly with you, there's no detail. The devil's always going to be in the detail of what does actually mean, what the regulation is going to translate to, and things of that nature. So we'll watch that as well. And the last piece, which it'd be great if we see some additional funding, finalization of the state funding formula, which doesn't change our budget because at this point, anything happening at the state level doesn't impact our budget. It's too late, because our absentee ballots by law had to be out by last Friday and things of that nature. So whatever revenue sources come in, it then dictates, quite frankly, you're not the expenditure side of the budget. It could dictate from the revenue side of the budget how much or how little, how more or how less, if you want to say it that way, property tax that we may seek to levy come this September and October. So we're watching that closely for some of those reasons as well. So we'll see if anything comes out in detail on Friday. I'll clearly be sharing with the board and Friday Buzz and any details or any potential implication for us as a system. Let me pause. Any question on any of those things? No? And so I'm going to go, Mr. Rosselli, just hold 1 second if you don't mind, because they wore matching shirts. So we're fortunate, as a system, and, Scott, where are you? Can't see you. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Mrs. Scott, sit right now. So yes, we're still fortunate as a system. We're fortunate as a system and I can say particularly, as superintendent, we've had, a lot of good people who have the best interests of students in mind, to run for the Board of Education. And I don't say that lightly, because if you look across the country, there are a lot of people running for boards of education that has no interest in preserving what I call the integrity of public education. We've been fortunate here at Shen and many schools in this region to have, people who run for the board. Yes, people have different viewpoints and opinions. However, the intentionality behind those individuals are coming out, what can I do, contribute to, help support, things that are good for our students. And so the board is truly, the engine that drives, because with a great board, a lot of good things happen. With a rogue board, nothing happens. And I think we've been fortunate here at Shen that we've had boards that have been very supportive of the efforts, here. And so tonight, as you heard, Mr. Templeton announce, and thank you very much, Tom, for your board service and being a proud alumni of Shen. I know that was a great tribute to you to say, I went to school here and live in the community and also had a chance to serve on the board. So I want to thank you and applaud you for that as well. So appreciate it very much. And tonight we have, 2 incumbents, 3 seats, 3 people, so it's an uncontested election. Petra Holden, who's the current president of the board, is running for re-election. So Petra, this way so people see you.
Thank you.
Deanna Stevenson, who is actually now the longest serving member on the Shen board, is also running for re-election. So Deanna Stevenson. And we have a newcomer, Ms. Andrea Gallo. Andrea, can you stand up? So Andrea is been involved in the district in many ways. Most recently as the president of the Varsity Football Booster Club, and has two sons in high school here. And so someone again who has been contributing to the system in different ways, and now put her hat in for the Board of Education. So those would be the 3 candidates that individuals will be voting on come May 20th. So certainly appreciate the incumbents for saying yes, continue to go, and for Andrea to say send me, I'll join the group as well. So barring something absolutely we can't think about, we have one new member to the board next year. So Andrew, welcome as well. So looking forward to seeing you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
And even Mrs. Hoffman is clapping from Colorado.
I
So we have several presentations on the docket. One is a highlighting of arts, and I'm going to give credit to Mrs. Wilson Turner. I was actually in Pittsburgh for my daughter's graduation, and I have to announce that because I'm such a proud papa. My youngest kid just graduated from college, which is crazy because I'm not sure if I'm old enough to have the youngest kid graduate from college. So Dr. Wilson Turner sent me an email to say we should consider the color guard, and I was like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. They just wanted this national thing, and for me, being around color guard for a long time, back from my Mohammedan days, it has gone probably to every color guard show here for the last 20 years. It was absolutely one of those things like, duh, why did I not think about it? So I say, Cecily, thank you very much for that reminder. And so now I'd like to ask Scott to stand up finally. And so Scott, if you don't mind, because I often say that the color guard is an amazingly talented group of individuals, and there are a lot of people behind the curtain that makes it happen. A lot of parents who are volunteering. If you ever go to a color guard show, I'm always amazed, like, who came up with the design for these sets? And then who put them together and all those kind of things. And Scott has been that glue that binds not only Shen Color Guard, but I would say across the state. He is truly the person that, when you think about color guard in New York and probably across the country, Scott Snell, if you open the color guard dictionary, his face is right there. So Scott, if you don't mind, if you just offer a couple comments and then introduce your team and what happened at your competition.
First of all, thank you very,
Mike,
This-
turn
yeah.
it to
The one to the back, yeah. So you can do a lot of things, but you can't turn on the microphone.
hey, my eyes ain't what they used to be. I have somebody to do that, Dr. Robinson. There we go. You know, I have technicians who do that for me now. I've been here long enough. So, as Dr. Robinson and I were talking beforehand, I have been teaching with the district in the color guard capacity for the past 31 years. Next year will be my 32nd year teaching in the district. It'll be my 30th year as the director of the program here. We have on average 50 to 60 students involved in the program each year, and we run our fall program where you see us at football games performing, and then in the winter months we compete on 3 different levels, kind of like a varsity, a JV, and what we call cadet, or kind of like a modified team for our younger kids. So we had a great season this year amongst all the performers. At the state championships, our varsity and JV won gold medals, and our cadet won a silver medal, missing the gold by 1/10 of a point. So it was very close. But we've traveled to the World Championships, as we have done for 27 of my 29 years. We haven't traveled the 2 years we were in COVID, but we traveled to the World Championships. They competed against 55 teams. It's a 3-day competition. They do prelims on day 1, and then they cut that down to the top 36 teams, and then they competed on day 2, and they cut that to the top 15, and then they competed. And this year, due to their extreme hard work and dedication, they won a silver medal by 1/10. We just came just by the bronze. The bronze was a 95.4 or 3, and we had a 95.4. So it was a very successful week for the team, and it was very exciting because we do have 8 seniors this year. 7 of the 8 seniors have been with us for 8 years. They had started in 5th grade and have been with us all the way till their graduation. So it was a very exciting week for us at World Championships.
Awesome. I don't know if you want to introduce. I saw somebody brought in a big trophy there.
Yeah, over there, the trophy there, yeah.
So somebody want to talk about it? You have a designated spokesperson?
Go ahead, get up there.
And also, when you're done, if all the members come up and you line up here, we take a picture.
Yep.
As well.
Just talk a little bit about the experience, what it was like. You've been here a long time, girl.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the best Dayton, like World Championships that I've ever attended. I've had the opportunity to attend 4 now, starting my freshman year and now finishing it strong with my senior year. We went into the competition in 4th place, and it was the most exhilarating feeling when all of our coaches came knocking on our doors when the scores got released, and we found out we had jumped to 2nd after 1 performance. Yeah. And yep, I just had a lot of fun doing it with my teammates, and I'm very proud of everyone.
Awesome. Congratulations. Just line up over here. We'll take a. Do you have
Yeah.
Scott? You can certainly join them. We'll send you the picture.
Yeah, make sure you're in the front or. It's 2 lines, 8 and 7, let's go, come on. Let's show that we know how to create a form. Let's not block and tell people, move down a little bit. What you doing here? Down just a little bit.
What do we do?
There we go.
All right, yep, that looks good. All right, everybody. Got it.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good job, parents. You guys did so much work, I know you did.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Roselli, and so continuing with, as the board know, we tried to highlight different student activities over the course of the year. And this time of the year is the highlighting of the arts. And so we have, Mr. Rosetta is here, and I'll try to drive, if you don't mind.
I do not mind.
Okay.
We're gonna try to move relatively quick through this because there's a lot of slides with making sure we highlight kids appropriately, but also not dragging. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to address the board. This is a great opportunity every year to focus on some of the great things our music and art students do. As I think about our program and what I want to share with you folks, I think about making sure that we are indeed highlighting some of the spotlight performances for kids, so like the honors type thing. It's also important when we think about a complete and comprehensive arts program that we make sure we have a component that is bringing artists to us, so kids get authentic and real experiences. So that's kind of like part 2 of this presentation. And then part 3 is how we bring arts at Shen to the community, because I think that's also a pivotal component in creating a comprehensive experience for kids. And then last but not least, I'm gonna invite my colleague, Mrs. Marcinko, up to walk you through what's going on in animation. As you know, we onboarded that class last year, we approved it last year, and we started it this year. So I wanted to give you a little taste of what's happening in there. It's been a great success thus far. So, with that being said, let's roll. The first couple of slides will highlight the students who participated in the Saratoga-Warren County Music Educators Association performances. So we run 3 of those every year. The first slide, if we could.
Yeah, I hate this. I'm sorry. Sorry, ma'am, you have to just look at me.
No, you're okay. I have the stream going, so I'm watching the stream for the slides, so you don't have to do that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, but thank you, I appreciate it, Nikki.
Okay.
There we are, slide 2. Okay, so the All-County Jazz and Orchestra program, well, the number of students in there is now covered by nearly 22 students participated. You can see their names up there, and then of course there's some pictures. Next slide highlights the All-County Band, which was, I think, 36 kids, but again, I can't see that. I think it's 36 and 42 next. Long story short, this is a situation where all the schools, the participating schools in Saratoga and Warren County, send kids to a festival. You send the names and some information about the kids to the person who runs the festival, and then they go through an adjudication process to select the students. So all in all, this year, Shen had 100 kids involved, which is pretty dynamite. The choral festival we hosted, we take a turn every few years hosting. So that was right here at Shenendehowa. It was an outstanding experience. Super grateful for the staff who supported that. Next up, we have Suburban Council, a similar festival, except that one runs through the Suburban Council component schools. 28 kids this year, also a prestigious situation for kids. It's an adjudicated system, a little more intense than All County, but still phenomenal turnout, 28 kids. And then next up is our area All-State kids. I kind of tiered the loftiness of each of these festivals. Area All-State's a little harder to get into. 25 Shen kids participated. And then the next 2 slides are the super big deal. This highlights our All-State kids. So these students performed in Isthmus solo. More than likely it was a level 6. More than likely they scored 100 on a perfect score. And they are competing with every student in the state to get selected. So for us to have 7 kids is fantastic. I think we had 3 alternates as well. It's phenomenal. So bravo to those students who worked really hard to get to that situation. I'm super proud of them, and of course the staff who supported them. Shifting briefly to art, we run a couple of shows we participate in a few shows every year. The first one is the Empire State Plaza show. We had 200 K through 8 elementary artists, first grade through 8, featured in this show. This happens obviously at the Empire State Plaza, and all the work created in some way has to mirror the collection that's currently downtown in Albany. So we have a unit in art, again, 1st through 8th grade, where teachers cover the artists that inspired the work, and then they replicate work in their own fashion. 200 kids, pretty excited about that. As we scroll down, another show that we participate in annually is the Art in 3 Dimensions show. Again, I've kind of given you the tiered competitiveness. So I think we had 4 Shen students who were selected for this show. This is samples of their work. This is all 3D type work, so ceramics, sculpture, and you can see the work is pretty dynamic. This is a blind adjudication for this show, so the adjudicators just see an image, they have no idea what school. I think, if I remember correctly, there were 180 works submitted and about 60 selected, so even to get 4 in that is pretty noteworthy. So congratulations to those students. Excuse me. Next up is the Media Fest. The Media Fest was hosted at Niskayuna this year. It is all digital type work. I think we had 7 or 12, but you can see the images of what the kids have created. Some of it's photos, some of it's digitally enhanced images. Again, to have the number of students that we got in is pretty dynamite. This is a capital region and beyond. The school districts in the capital region and beyond participate. So it's a wide variety. Again, this was somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 works that were submitted, and Shen got as many as we did. If you scroll down one more slide, Dr. Robinson, this will be the last slide of the images of the student artwork. It's pretty sensational. And if you scroll down one more slide, this is the graphic design stuff that was entered and selected. And then one more slide down are images of the films that were accepted into it. I didn't link them only for the interest
So
of time.
Frank, I just want to put that, you see one of the images is 75th anniversary, because the students also competed to draw different images, and one was selected for the banner that we have.
And what's particularly cool about that, in my opinion, is I don't think that was scroll back for a second, Dr. Robinson.
There was no one.
That was not the one that was selected by the committee, right?
That is not the one that was selected by the
Right.
committee, no.
So, as is in the case with art, it's subjective, everyone has opinion, right? What was selected for one show, a different image was selected for the logo. And again, if you put 100 people in a room, they don't pick something different. So that's what I love about art, is that everyone sees something different, but good art is good art. Okay, we can go one more down now, because we covered this one. And then finally, one of the more prestigious shows in the area is the high school regional. Kids who are selected for this, it's like really high level art. These are more than likely our juniors and seniors who are in advanced drawing and painting courses, or graphic design for that matter. So you see we had 4 students selected this year. We had 4 traditional media, and then we had 1 animation, which Mrs. Marcinko is going to show you later. So that wraps up the high school regional show. We've had a few musicals. If you've been around, the high school performed Legally Blonde. It was a sensational performance. You can see some of the images taken from it. What a dynamite situation. I want to say, Mr. Gregg told me 150 kids involved, maybe 180. And then the poster was designed by Miss Butterfield's graphic design class, so we try to keep as many things in-house and collaborative as possible. I was super excited about that. Just a sampling of the musicals that happen at the elementary school. I want to point out Arenda. Mr. Harrington, I just want to mention him by name, is retiring. He has been running that musical for 30 years. And along with Mary Ann Sprague, our music teacher at Arenda, who partnered with him for 28, I think, of those 30 years. So that's a lot of time invested in drama and our community, so I think that's noteworthy to mention. I started by saying we highlight the students, and then we talk about how we bring artists to Shenendehowa, or how we expose kids to artists. We had our 21st annual jazz festival this year. Marshall Jokes, Grammy Award-winning trombonist. He was dynamite with kids. The performance was tremendous. Mr. Carucci in that bottom picture is bringing our kids to Greenwich, Connecticut to do an adjudication festival. They scored phenomenally well. It was a great experience for kids. We can keep going. A couple of more examples. We had Kim Nazarian and Darman Meter of New York Voices. You may remember that group from several years ago. They worked with our jazz kids, performed for them, gave them a clinic, workshop. It was fantastic. We also had Dr. Jared Hall, work with our 10-12 band students, sharing some of his music and directing them and leading them. Choraleers in Bella Voce went over to SUNY Schenectady to do a choral master class. That's become an annual thing that the kids are finding really rewarding. So, you know, where we can afford these things, we keep doing them. And then this one is one of my favorites. If you could scroll down just a little bit more, Dr. Robinson. So, our new, perfect. So, we have a new teacher this year, Miss Davis, who is our high school music teacher for ISD and FSD classes. And she came to me early in the year with an idea to bring this band called Flame to Shenendehowa. Flame is a band that is composed of musicians who all have developmental disabilities. So it is the model for our ISD, FSD students of what success can look like in music, even if you have disability, right? So we were able to get all of our middle school and high school self-contained special ed classes over for the performance. We had some Best Buddy program kids. We invited several classes to come in. I would say there was probably 300 or 400 people in the auditorium surrounding our special needs students, and it was a phenomenal hour and so well spent. So kudos to Ms. Davis for coming up with the idea. I often get the credit, but nothing happens without great teachers and great thinkers and folks who are so committed to kids in our district. So I'm super grateful, and what a great experience. Okay, and then we talk about bringing our kids out into the community. So you'll see some pictures from Music in Our Schools Month, which is March every year. Mrs. Harrington brought the treble choir to the Empire State Plaza. Some of our middle school jazz band teachers brought the kids over to the library to perform. As much as we can be in the community and expose the community to what we do here, I think it's a great thing, not only for the program, but for kids. Keep scrolling, please. I just have a few images of some examples of this. Choraleers in Bella Voce went to the Clifton Park Senior Center. We try to partner with them a couple of times throughout the year. We had kids playing at the tenure reception. The next slide showcases Michael Latano's choir from Tasaga. They were on WNHT this year. He's been a big proponent of that, done it several times. The kids sounded great. I hope you caught the show. Going. Ninth grade orchestra students over at the Summit at Half Moon. We have students every year perform at the Friendship Dinner. And now we look at some art projects. If you could just scroll down a little more, I need that text, I promise, so thank you. So our Art Honor Society has done a couple of projects this year. They were working on some murals for Captain. They are going to be working on designing some playground games for Octay. On the furthest right, you'll see some bee boxes for the Saratoga Beekeeper Association. And then you may remember this from last year, Benson Cares and the Mr. Mo project. Essentially, our students paint portraits from pictures of abandoned dogs or senior dogs that nobody wants, and then they sell the portraits and make money. It's so cool. If you see the reference drawings for these pictures, you'd be amazed at what our kids can do. And then we do a show at the Clifton Park Senior Center. Here's just a few images of some of the works that were up and some of the kids who attended. Great experience. They are super grateful when we bring kids over there. So we want to continue to do that. And then finally, some upcoming events. We have the billboard reveal on May 16th around 10:20 a.m. Our annual art show will be at the public library 22nd through the 28th. We have another 24 concerts to go. We're running 75 to 80 every year. On the right-hand side, you'll see the logo for the 75th anniversary that was designed in graphic design class by Spencer Castle. So that's pretty cool. You see those up on campus. And of course, we have the 75th anniversary coming up. We're putting together an alumni choir. We've got about 90 people invested in that. We're gonna have about 20 kids perform the piano and hopefully a few small ensembles throughout the day. Super excited about all of it. Thank you for your time. I turn it over to Ms. Marcinko to talk a little bit about animation.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for having me. I'm Mary Marcinko. I'm so excited to share what we've been creating in animation this year. So first off, I just want to apologize. In my original presentation, I had moving images and videos and GIFs, which I don't think will transfer through the PDF, but we'll still have a good, good sense of what's going on. So we started off the year with foundational skills, learning the basics of animation, squashing and stretching, timing, anticipation. These are the things that helped students bring their drawings to life. So we started off with these foundations, and then we moved on to, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Sorry. Then we moved on to talking about the history of animation, where we also created stories and animated using some more traditional techniques such as flipbooks and stop motion animation, and we even had students go and take videos and create rotoscopes through Adobe Photoshop. So we had a really fun history lesson through those classic hands-on techniques with animation. From there, these are the rotoscopes, if you go to the next slide, these are the rotoscopes, which are far more impressive when they are actually being animated. But if anyone wants the link to the original, sure. Yeah. I'd be more than happy to provide that link because they are phenomenal. So for the next slide. So from here, again, this is much more impressive animated, but from there we graduated to Adobe Animate, which is fantastic for kids to utilize because that is what is used right now in the animation industry. So they're having very authentic learning experiences. So with this particular lesson, students were challenged to create shapes with personality. So these shapes, they're bouncing all over each other, interacting with each other, and basically giving them personalities, which is really difficult, but they absolutely crushed it. So we started with basic shapes, then we went to character design. So this is an example of a student who had a design for a character, and this is an animated walk cycle of that character. So it's pretty impressive to see how we went from these basic shapes to now these characters are coming to life. So there's a few more examples of the walk cycles on the next slide. Again, more impressive animated. But what's great about this whole course is throughout the course, students collaborated with each other, they persevered through tough times, they solved problems creatively. Animation requires a lot of trial and error, a lot of teamwork and adapting when things don't work as planned. So these skills that students are learning in this class go far beyond the classroom and are applicable in any field they pursue after high school. So that's, I definitely mention that a lot during class, like, we can do hard things. We were fortunate enough to have a few guest speakers come to talk to our students about the animation industry. They shared insights about the industry and tips and advice on how to get started in the industry. And they also just really inspired my students, so I think that was just a phenomenal opportunity. A couple of animation students had their work accepted into some prestigious local art shows, and a few have actually already been accepted into college animation programs using projects that we completed in class in their portfolio. So that was really exciting. Anna Zhang right there in the middle there, she's going to RIT for animation, so that's super exciting. They also won the category in Media Arts Fest for stop motion animation. So that was also a phenomenal win. So this class offers a powerful mix of art and technology and communicating, both providing them a lot of opportunities to grow and learn, creative problem solve, become more confident. So it's been a blast to teach, and I just want to say thank you so much for your continued support in providing students with creative real-world learning opportunities. Thank you so much.
Any comments on it?
Yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic.
cool stuff, man.
As soon as you send that link out, I want to take a look. I want to see the walk cycles, and I want to see the animated squares. I have a feeling they're going to have a lot of personality.
It's so good.
But this opportunity has grown and grown and grown. Like this presentation every year gets better and better and better. So kudos, honestly, and the opportunity for the kids grow, right? So there's a lot more kids involved, which is what we want. Just tremendous, really tremendous, guys.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, you know, I'm somewhat biased, but I think that these, you know, people underestimate how important the arts are in terms of, you know, really preparing people for the real world, for the workforce, and the creative problem solving, the creativity, you know, the approach and the way you have to look at things, and you know, you're constantly having to reinvent things. Those skills are the most important for being successful in your future. So, an unbelievable program.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate you both. Dr. Wilson-Turner.
I feel like I always get to present on a night when we get to highlight really cool things, so I like that. Makes it easier to talk about some of these more technical things that we do. And so tonight I will talk about our transition through for not just next generation learning standards, but also the New York State science learning standards that have come to us through the New York State Education Department over the last almost 10 years or so. We've been making these shifts, so an important conversation that links really nicely to the upcoming proposals around the changes in graduation measures. So everything in curriculum instruction for Shenendehowa starts with our Shenendehowa learning framework. And at the center are what we got to see this evening, our students, our why. But then around that is how we continue to move our students forward through curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And so this evening, when we talk about the standards, we're not talking about them in this nebulous sense of what the state asks us to do in our schools each day. We're talking about it in the concrete way in which we have made that transition smoothly and successfully here at Shenendehowa to ensure our students are learning at the highest levels. So beginning in 2016 with the New York State Science Learning Standards transition, and then again in 2018 for ELA and math to start the transition from next generation learning standards, we have been on a journey in education in the state of New York. You are probably all very familiar with the Common Core Learning Standards that came on the scene in 2011 in a very intensive way as schools moved quickly to adopt those pieces. And the next generation learning standards are really an effort on the part of our New York State Education Department to take what was good about the Common Core Learning Standards and make them more practical and usable for teachers and their families as they try to understand what students need to know and be able to do in ELA and math. And so the shift from the Common Core Learning Standards to next generation learning standards has really been about the language changes that have happened, consolidation of standards so that they are not so prolific and are much more manageable for teachers to actually navigate throughout the school year. And then naturally what comes from that is then the alignment of assessments to ensure that we are measuring those standards, which I'll talk about next. The New York State Science Learning Standards, however, are a bit of a different journey. So the last time the New York State Science Standards were addressed were in 1996. And so you'll see in the timelines and the slides to come that this transition has been a lot larger and has started in 2016, so almost 10 years ago, because it was a significant overhaul of the New York State Science Learning Standards, really making the shift that has happened throughout education from just learning the skills and content to really learning the enduring issues and concepts that students will need to know over time and can apply in multiple situations. So I think we've heard a lot lately about what schools prepare students for, and this was an attempt to make sure that we are preparing students not just to learn skills, strategies, and facts, but in fact to learn how to apply those things in context and in situations that they know are repeated multiple times in the science field, in ELA and math, and you saw similar things when they overhauled the social studies standards. So I will actually speak probably a bit more about the science examples because the shifts have been so much more significant in the shift to the New York State Science Learning Standards, whereas I said the Next Generation Learning Standard shifts has been a little milder, really focused on that consolidation and making them more user-friendly. No matter which standard we talk about and look at, here at Shen, as we try to do most things, there has been a gradual implementation. And thankfully, that is how New York State rolled out all of these standards. There was an implementation plan that came through in phases, as opposed to next year, you're gonna learn all of these standards. And you'll see when we go through the timeline that those phases are aligned with allowing time for schools and students and teachers to learn the new standards, apply the new standards before they're assessed the new standards. And that's basically the phases in which they lay out. So here at Shen, this has required a great deal of curriculum development and professional learning in partnership between our academic administrators, who are a fabulous group of administrators. I know we have many here at Shen, but they kind of work in the background to ensure that what happens in schools every day are aligned to the highest quality of instructional standard. And they do that in partnership with our teachers. We spend time in curriculum development days, professional learning days, summer curriculum hours, really outlining and mapping the work that has to happen in order for learning to occur in an effective manner. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to each of them who lead this work every day, and the partnership that they have with teachers to take the best input of teachers when applying these pieces. We also, primarily at the elementary level, do a large investment, as you'll see in a couple of weeks, instructional resources to support standards, to make sure teachers have the tools that they need to place in front of students to support that professional, or that student learning. Next. So, as I mentioned, that shift happens with the standards, and then usually about 3 years, you'll see in the timeline, the shift then happens around the assessment. So, just so I get all the dates right without looking at the next slide, in 3 through 8, hopefully without missing a beat, if you have students in our schools, grade 3 through 8 testing changed to be aligned with the next generation learning standards. And as I mentioned before, not a significant shift because the standards were fairly similar, and thus probably the easiest transition that we were able to make. In spring of 2024, that was last year, was the first time we had the new algebra exam aligned to those standards, and also the new science test. So again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about science, since those standards changed the most since 1996. In grades 5 and 8, science testing was held for students. Traditionally, it had been grade 4 and 8. And one of the significant changes with the science standards and implementation was the need to do, we were really used to having lab minutes or a lab requirement at the high school level. But basically, they took that model and brought it down to the 5th and 8th grade level, where there are standard experiences that students have to have in order to be prepared to sit for the exams in grade 5 and 8. And so that has been a significant part of the work that our academic administrators have done, is to work with our teachers to develop a process by which students can engage in those learning activities and be fully prepared for the concepts that will be presented to them. So then we move to this year, in the spring of 2025, we will bring on geometry, biology, and earth science. So all Regents exams at the high school, and you'll notice that those Regents exams, when they're introduced for the first time, are not conducted during Regents Week. They are conducted outside of that window a little bit earlier in June, so we have to make adjustments accordingly with the high school team and our academic administrators to make sure that we are able to create successful testing conditions. And then last but not least, in the spring of 2026, we will bring on English Language Arts at the high school level, grade 11. Chemistry and physics will be the new exams next year. Oh, it's fun. We all piled up together for Regents exams, but again, like our academic administrators, our high school team do a really good job thinking through the execution of the exam. But again, long before that, this really measured approach to how we build curriculum, build instruction, so our students are more than prepared to be successful in those spaces. Next slide. So these are just great resources that the New York State Education Department puts out to help you understand the timeline of when the shift is proposed, the shift is adopted, and then the work begins to introduce the new standards before the assessment comes along. And so then you'll see the break in the timeline that kind of indicates when you're moving into the next phase. And so you can see in ELA, that 23-24 phase moves into that next standard of assessment. And so similarly for math, the timeline is provided for you to start the implementation and then to be ready for the assessment in a paced way. And again for science, as you'll see, starting much earlier in 2016, so almost taking 10 years to move to the successful implementation of our science standards.
I find it so interesting. I thought we were going back right? I thought we were going less.
Oh, that's my next presentation.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'll wait.
Don't steal my thunder.
Okay, I'm absolutely not.
So after the introduction of all of those things, our next steps, which we have already begun to work around, is to adjust for new Regents exams administered before Regents Week. So this year, as I highlighted, are biology, earth science, and geometry, which cross over similar populations of students, if you think about the grades in which the students take those assessments. But also the ongoing curriculum development and professional learning that needs to happen in our science courses, as they have brought on grade 5, grade 8, and 4 core science subjects in order to be prepared for new assessments. And so again, kudos to our academic administrators for heralding that work to make sure that it is done in a thoughtful way that is manageable for teachers. I will highlight particularly in science that we work with other districts regionally here at Shen. You'll come and you can stop by the SIL a couple times in the fall and you'll see other district administrators and teachers of science courses coming together to talk about the new standards, how they're building their curriculum, what assessments they're building, so that we're collaboratively building tools to really ensure that we're getting the best of the best in front of our students. And so we, as often we do at Shen, we are contributing to the larger science community, but we're also allowing ourselves to be shaped and influenced by the larger science community. And there's been a wonderful partnership that's developed as a result of 5-3 testing between our elementary and secondary administrators to ensure that the skill sets that we're expecting students to have at the secondary level begin very early on in our elementary level. And so while we're anticipating things changing, there's a timeline for that as well. We still continue to prepare our students at a high level for those standards. So this really should say New York Inspires draft, right? Because this is still a proposal from the New York, that has been put before the New York State Board of Regents. We've waited with bated breath to see what action will be taken before it becomes official, but we did feel it was important to share that foundational understanding of what has been proposed for changes in new graduation measures. And so again, this again is measured work that has begun. Oh, it jumped. Oops.
We're stuck here.
Huh. So it began as measured work in 2019, and has been popularly known as the Blue Ribbon Commission work, because they are the ones who came up with the final recommendations that were presented to the Board of Regents in 2023. And then we finally saw a timeline for proposed action in November 2024's Board of Regents meeting. And they made the shift from the Ribbon Commission to New York Inspires. And so my first bullet talks about that Regents exams are not going away. And I think that's something I really wanted to highlight this evening, because that has been a narrative that has been associated with this. What is going to happen, as you'll see in the next slide, is what's proposed is this transition to a broader model of assessment that allows children multiple pathways to demonstrate their proficiency in both the academic standards and the portrait of a graduate. So, Regents exams are not going away. They're going to be one of many ways that students can demonstrate that they're proficient to graduate from high school. A key factor that you've seen a couple times now, which is very similar to something we have at Shen, is a portrait of a graduate. That's going to be significant, and that there'll be a rubric attached to that students have to demonstrate mastery of those components of a portrait of a graduate in order to successfully complete high school. There will be prioritized reformatted learning standards. Now, I just took you through a 10-year journey of prioritized reformatted learning standards, but as they design new assessments that reflect multiple pathways for students to learn, they will also be designing new, new standards. They will also design new assessments. And a key feature of that is those assessments being project-based opportunities for students. And so there's a whole pilot group of schools that are working through the different types of assessments that can happen that would be able to help students demonstrate their mastery or proficiency of the high school requirements. And then the one that's really interesting that we talked a lot about at the high school team and Mr. Davis with the counselors, we did bring the counselors high school team together to have this conversation, is this idea of moving to one diploma and a uniform New York State transcript. One diploma, and I'll talk a little bit more on the next one, basically brings together all the advanced Regents diploma, all the different diploma options that could exist. Now one diploma, they'll do designations in a very different way. And the uniform New York State transcript is this idea that every school in New York State will present this information the same exact way. So if a college gets a transcript from a school in New York State, they'll know exactly what it means comparatively across New York State. So the next are some key,
Sorry.
So what was the question, Naomi?
I'm sorry, well, I didn't catch, what's the timeline for the changes in the diplomas?
so there's a timeline slide coming up. You guys keep
There's a
trying
timeline slide coming up.
I'm actually scrolling ahead, but I didn't see it.
Where she is.
So, as I mentioned, there are 4 key transformations as we move through the new graduation measures. And you'll see at the bottom, 4 transformations, phased approach, and enhanced engagement. They're really focusing on a lot of conversations at the BOCES levels to ensure that districts and schools have an understanding of what's to come and can work collaboratively to try to put some of these things in place. So they will adopt the New York State Portrait of Graduates, which you'll see below. They will redefine credits and learning experience, and that really talks about how students demonstrate learning that will be different than the traditional ways that we've calculated up to this point in time. The sunset of the diploma requirements, but clearly indicating that the Regents exam will still be an option for students to utilize to satisfy their graduation requirements, and this move to 1 diploma, where your advanced designations will become either seals or endorsements, as opposed to several different diplomas that schools and districts are trying to navigate. And this you'll probably remember from Superintendent's Conference Day. This is really intentionally showing how we have already started this work, right? So we opened up the presentation with the standards, talking about the importance of a very measured approach, and for us not feeling like we are making seismic shifts at any given point in time. And so we are doing the same thing when it comes to graduation measures. We have started having these conversations now, even though there isn't anything definitive that tells us what we are doing from Board of Regents at this point in time, but we know that this portrait of a graduate is clearly linked to our Shen profile. I'm gonna reserve comment on that for both our students and our employees and our graduates. But that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing that it's not something new that we have to introduce to our staff and to our students. It's something they're going to be very familiar with, and therefore probably very capable of demonstrating the proficiency in the rubric that will be created that aligns with the portrait of a graduate. And so Ms. Hoffman, there's the overall proposed timeline. And it started with just really doing the work of finalizing the portrait of a graduate, releasing new credit details of the new credit requirements. And really what I'm interested to see where we're going, and I think our academic administrators are as well, is that prioritize reformatted learning standards. Is it the tweak that we saw with Common Core learning standards, or is it something a little more seismic that's going to happen as a result of the fact that there being performance-based assessments that will occur? And so you're looking all the way out to fall 2029 and then some before the majority of these items begin to take effect. But if you look at school year 27-28, by then they anticipate having 1 diploma. They anticipate sunsetting the diploma requirements, which means something should be in place to replace the singular path through the Regents examination. I'm very interested to see the finalized rubrics align with the portrait of a graduate. What's really also cool to highlight is for 26-27, they're going to start planning for the financial literacy and climate education requirement. So more to come on that as to whether it'll be a separate class requirement or something that we build into an existing class, but a lot for us to keep an eye on the curriculum standpoint, or from the curriculum standpoint, to make sure that we are prepared and ahead of the game in the implementation of these pieces. So our next steps are really our current steps. We keep this as a standing agenda item for our administrators meeting, not just our academic administrators, but for our principals as well, to ensure that we have the most current information that is coming out of the Board of Regents, and also trying to make sure our counselors remain included in those conversations as we hear new information. And in the fall, if these things are available, our goal will be to convene our administrators and counselors to review. The proposed distribution of required credits to begin to prepare for that phase out that will occur in 2027. So a lot of planning ahead, but I think it provides us a great opportunity to know what's coming and to start now to think of the things that naturally align and will allow us, again, to have a measured approach and a very seamless transition into the changes that may come.
Oh, no. No questions, just my kids I feel so bad for
I
anybody
thought Regents was leaving.
right now. Yeah, well, not only that, but like all of my children are hitting every test.
Every change, yeah, every change.
But hopefully, if what they're experiencing, they've never taken the old test, right? So sometimes I remind folks of that. This is their first time through it, right? And so what they know is what they've been prepared for. And so our job is to ensure that we prepare them in a very intentional way so they don't know any different. So when we introduced 3 through 8 testing, the first 3rd graders didn't know that test looked any different. They sat down and took that test. So we hope that continues to be our approach. And we hope that New York State Education Department continues to take our feedback as we engage in these new assessments and standards.
Trust the process.
Dr. Wilson, I'm sorry.
No,
Mary.
no.
Go ahead. No, I was talking, go ahead.
No, I just had a question about the implementation of the curriculum associated with this new testing and how daunting that is in terms of introducing that, and is it something that's coming directly, does it impact the decision making at Shen in terms of, you know, what materials are used, or is that really tied on the state ed level?
So all the state education department says, here's the bar you have to meet, right? That's what standards do for us, so that there's a consistent bar that everyone in New York State can say, if I have a New York State diploma, I've accomplished these things based on these standards. It's then the district's job to interpret those standards and align it with who our students are, what our students' needs are, and then select resources that meet students' needs, right? So I've worked in 2 different districts and had 2 very different student needs, right? So there are different resources that may have leveraged in that district, there are different resources we leverage here, and there are some that are absolutely the same, because what's good for, you know, for one group of students has been good for either of them. So it allows districts the flexibility to make the decision, as long as they can say that by making these decisions, picking these instructional resources, designing curriculum in this particular way, we will still meet the bar that has been set for us by New York State. And that's what the state assessments do, right? It says that you taught what you were supposed to teach, and this is how we measured it to see that outcome actually happened.
Thank you.
So, going forward, I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking outside the box, for the higher level classes, geometry, algebra 2 and things like that, for the standardized testing, when they do the that will never transcribe into a college looking at those, correct, as a.
No, those courses will still be on
They'll still be
transcript.
there.
It will be on the transcript.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the piece, there's a lot of wait to see. And subsequently, a lot of assumptions of what we hope. It's virtually impossible to scrap an entire system and start with a new. So that's one thing, and it has never been historically been the case. New York has changed a lot over the years, and the one thing that we're pleased to see that they're still looking at, they're using the cohort model. In other words, they're looking at current 6th graders and say when they get 9th graders, they should be ready for this. Not only they should, we as a system should have done the work so those kids are ready for this sequence of experience for 9 through 12. So the transcript piece is, the diploma piece is one thing.
Right.
The courses that kids take is another thing. And colleges are more so inclined to look at courses than diploma types or even GPAs. Because you have some places use 5.0 scales, and some places use 3.0 scale. Some places, so if you're just looking at a number, some kid have a 4.7 GPA and another kid has a 3.9, and you think one kid is a super genius. Well, they're both pretty genius, but because they're just using different scales. So I think it's the courses and our commitment, almost back to Mary Colleen's question, our commitment to provide high quality courses or courses that you've heard us present that provide college credits, those things will continue. What's happening is how we package those things to create different ways for students to be quote unquote eligible for this diploma, whatever that diploma is going to be. That's the piece where the detail is going to prove out to that piece of it, especially when you start thinking about project-based learning initiatives, right? Where that can look very vastly different from, not only from school to school, but even from within a school, class to class. And so how do we then have consistency around that piece of it so that if young person taking teacher 1 for class A, young person take teacher 2 for class A, they have very comparable experiences. If you're looking at someone who's trying to be eligible for a project-based oriented diploma, for example. So I think those are the nuances that once the state finalize and cement some some concrete standards that we'll start saying, okay, how do we go from these standards to creating very concrete pathways, concrete courses, aligning the courses that we have with the portrait of a graduate, and it's not by accident that you see that look very similar to ours. We should have copyrighted, but that's a whole different conversation. So we started aligning those courses. What are the courses that goes to innovative practices? What are the courses that goes to having kids having a global experience? So there could be social study course, it could be foreign language course, it could be, so start putting these packages together with guidance from the state, then we have the consistency knowing that kids doing this pathway, they're all gonna have this experience. Kids are doing that pathway, always gonna have the experience. And all these experiences represent high quality experiences that kids are having. And this one diploma, it doesn't matter if you came this way, that way, you're getting this diploma that still represents high quality experience. Because it's no different right now. We have kids, we're gonna have 700 plus kids walk across the stage in June, and all of them had a wide variety of different classes. But yet they're all walking across and getting that Shen diploma. So sometimes people say, well, you know, it's not that different. I think it's just given much more defined pathways for kids to demonstrate their learning.
And if you remember, just a few months ago, Mr. Davis presented on our pathways, right? We started to build our courses out to make those connections for kids in anticipation of exactly what Dr. Robinson said. Kids are already taking multiple pathways to exit high school. So the more we connect this to work that we're already doing, the less anyone will feel it. And it'll feel like we've always been doing it because parts of it we absolutely have. Okay.
Thank you. Stay here.
I'm staying here.
And next up, Dr. Wilson Turner.
Would you like to open, Dr. Robinson?
Sure, I'll just give a little background. Sorry, Mrs. Hoffman, you're gonna have to stare at me again. So just a little background. Several years ago, this goes back to when Dr. Wood was here, and give you some point of context. We started seeing more and more as we go through interviews. For certain positions, it was a combination of shallow pools as well as the quality of the pool. And so more and more we started thinking about, okay, what can we do as a system to try to figure out how do we influence people to go into administration. And so it started very casual, informally. And it kind of comes from the notion that I think most people say that I am where I am because someone else believed in me more than I believe in myself. And say, yeah, you should try it, you should do it. And so that's like the background premise of it, right? And we're fortunate here as a system that we have quite a few people who are actually teaching, for example, with administrative certifications. And for whatever reason, they thought it was cool to go back to school. They have this credential, have never really done anything with it, so we're trying to tap into those people. Then we have a lot of people, and I'm sure Dr. Wilson Turner will talk about it. We have some young people now, first and second year teachers, they're just going by, I'm going to be an administrator in 3 years. I'm going to be an administrator in 5 years. And they're doing all the stuff in a very intentional, aggressive pace. So you have those folks. And then you have some people who quite frankly, who are current leaders in our system, that we're also thinking about, how do we motivate that person to think about doing something else, right? So this whole notion of growing our own is kind of looking at all those things at the same time. And so Dr. Wood kicked the piece off. At the same time, we were talking about with teachers. We've had a growing our own teachers thing that we've had for several years, and now Matt Davis is trying to keep that going and make it a more regional piece as well. So now we're trying to add more structure to that piece of it. As each year we get better at it, and so hopefully in the future we'll have much more strong partnerships with colleges and universities. So we have a lot of places now, people have online courses. We want to try to create more direct partnerships that hopefully can provide financial incentives and things of that nature. But that's more down the road. So that's kind of give you some backdrop of this piece of it. And that's it. I probably spoke about all your presentations already, didn't you? So anyway, I'll turn it back over to you.
Because I was not here in spring of 2023. You can go to the first slide where the first cohort began under the leadership of Dr. Wood and Dr. Robinson, where they pulled together the first group of aspiring leaders to really learn about what important leadership skills are. And I think that one of the most fun parts is hearing from Shen administrators about their individual pathways to leadership, and how they find joy in the work and how they've made that transition. And so those themes have really remained in place, as well as learning about various pathways to leadership. There isn't one direct pathway. You know, you look at As we did in our last session this spring, you look at Dr. Robinson's pathway, you look at my pathway, you look at Ms. Gleeha's pathway, 3 different pathways to be a part of the same team here at Shen. And so really opening up this idea of, finding your way to leadership and finding your contribution, whether it be formally or informally. And so on the right of the screen are the initial topics of focus from the first session that occurred in spring 2023. And I will point your attention to the box in the middle, because I feel like this is one that really resonates with the participants. And that's a day in the life of an administrator, work-life balance, and then really being able to connect to the leadership standards. And so again, in our cohort this year, conversations about what does it really mean to be an administrator? What do you do all day? Is really one of the questions, because as a teacher, your day is really scheduled, right? You have block 1, 2, 3, 4 of what needs to happen. And so it's really interesting for participants to learn to be able to ask questions about that. And one of the great questions, I'm stealing my thunder from a later slide, was administrators seem to be everywhere. All the evening events, all the things, like how are you creating this work-life balance and showing up and being present in the district and understanding the importance of both. So really powerful conversations to have with folks who are just on the brink of possibly considering leadership or saying no thank you. And so I think it's a really rewarding opportunity for the leaders that are able to participate and have conversations, and as Dr. Robinson said, tap the shoulder of the next person who could potentially step into the shoes of a leadership position in the system. So after the first cohort in spring of 2023, they did 3 sessions with Dr. Wood. It was my first year here last year, and Dr. Robinson and I came together and decided it was important to re-engage that cohort again last spring. And so we had 1 session with them to really say, so what have you done? You had that 3-time experience last year to learn about the different leadership pathways, learn about the standards, learn about what it means to be an administrator. Have you been able to put any of those things into practice? And we, one of the big questions are, well, how do I do that? Where do I go? What are my options? And so again, I feel like I've said Mr. Davis' name 6 times. We asked him to pull together the resources, because these are the pieces that were really necessary for people to know what the different programs are, and that there's virtual, there's in-person, there's hybrid. There are shorter programs, longer programs, more expensive programs. So really everything to really meet your need, to keep that information in the forefront as they begin to consider those pieces. And we maintain those key areas to learn about various leadership and just various leadership possibilities, and to continue to allow them to ask questions. And we did see some of our spring cohort folks last year come through our interview process after learning some pieces about the process. And I'll do a preview to this year. We've seen even more. So it's been already impactful in significant ways. And the next part of that, re-engaging the cohort 1, was we asked our all the administrators in our system to come together for Leadership Academy. We took a Leadership Academy session to really have each level group identify their path to leadership and what are some key pieces of knowledge that would be helpful for someone considering leadership to have in their back pocket, so to speak, as they're navigating this journey. And so each level, elementary, middle, high school, DLST, operational, academic, HR, business, fine arts, every department took it on and left little notes for us to provide to the cohort members to take a look at and reflect on, and to begin to identify some of the pieces they want to be able to carry forward in their leadership journey. So again, just an example of some of the rewarding activities we've been able to do with them as they start to build this toolkit of how they're going to navigate their next leadership opportunity. And that brings us to this year. So this year we decided to take a little bit different approach, and so we were calling it Careers in School Leadership over the last 2 years, and we talked about this idea of providing people the opportunity, as Dr. Robinson said, to level up their leadership. So there are people already in leadership positions, and they may not be in a school position, they may not be an assistant principal, they may be someone in the technology department, they may be someone in the business office or the HR office, and how do we expand this so that we have more people from different stakeholder groups come and participate in the process. So we started this process with a survey and put it out to the entire district. We asked principals to tap people and make sure that they participated. And so this is just a breakdown of the different people that we got to come to the table this year. We had a hall monitor. We had someone from the student, actually had 2 people from the student data learning and accountability office. We had people from the technology department, we had people from professional learning, facilities and maintenance, to start to think about what leadership looks like in those arenas, not just in the school itself or in the classroom or the principal position. And so then we structured this time, again, to start with this idea of leadership journeys and to dig deeply into the PCL standards, the leadership standards, and to really identify where they were strong already in terms of leadership standards. So it's great to know that you have some skills to begin with, and where those opportunities for growth were. And then to start talking about where you're going to get those opportunities for growth. And so one of the things that we talked about, which is probably my favorite thing thus far, was you can go and shadow any administrator in our system. You ask and you can follow them around and have a sense of what they do all day long. And the number of participants since March who have taken advantage of that has been significant. At our last session this month, someone asked me to help connect them with a couple people that they could shadow with. And the result has been, as positions have come available, which we've had several this spring, some of those candidates have sat at the table, and I'm very proud to say how impressive some of those candidates were after having participated in this and their leadership programs, to present in a very mature way, even though they're, to Dr. Robinson's point, maybe only in their 5th or 6th year of teaching, never held a leadership position, but they're garnering the information and the experiences that they need to kind of step into leadership roles, and that is a huge advantage to us as a system. And so we've had 2 sessions so far, March and April. The leadership panel, our own Mr. Roselli sat on that panel, so we had some different perspectives for them to ask questions about leadership for, and to really understand what it means to lead and what it means to lead here at Shen. I think people have come to appreciate there's a certain expectation and commitment to excellence, and how do you navigate those pieces was a big focus of that. And then we'll have our last session in May to talk about how you begin to prepare for the leadership role that you want. And so, you can go to the next slide. You can see why this would be enjoyable for people who've been in leadership for a long time, to talk about those people who are fresh and new to leadership. It's a way for us to be excited about the work and really be able to talk about the work. But larger than that, it fits so neatly into our district goals, right? So you would naturally think that it is about personnel and professionalism, right? That we're developing the next generation of learning. But it also falls into fiscal responsibility. When we hire people who understand our system, understand what we value, they can make a seamless transition that requires a lot less investment on our part in preparing people for the roles that they're going to take on. It builds our organizational culture when people see people who have worked for Shen rise in Shen and continue to contribute in significant ways. And these people have a thorough understanding of the importance of the school and classroom experience that is here for our students. And so it's just a very, very powerful way to touch each of our organizational goals and to continue to create opportunities to identify those folks who should be the next leaders in Shen.
Awesome.
Any questions from anyone, comments?
I just wanted to add, I think this really does complement a presentation that was made by Jenny Galea and her team, regarding hiring practices, because we all know that that's a big challenge in this environment, and to have a program like this to grow within, I think is very smart. So you're having those, step into these positions that, they're not new to Shen, they know Shen, but now that they're getting the support so that they can be successful in that role. So this is good stuff. I wasn't sure how much it's changed since as far as you mentioned the cohort 1 back in the spring of 2023, and then you talked about the excitement more recently, but I'm not sure what that shift looks like. Is it, can you just describe a little bit more what participation looked like back in the spring of 2023 versus now?
So 2023, and even last year when we revisited the cohort, was mostly people who are sitting teachers or guidance counselors, people who are looking to be assistant principals and principals. I think we had one person in the room who wanted to be an athletic director, which was different. And I think that kind of opened our eyes to people may be looking at different things. But I think I had conversations with people in the technology department, like how do I become the next Ray Nardelli, right? And we weren't having those conversations naturally. We're talking about the principal and assistant principal role and maybe some of the other district leadership roles. So I would say the group that's represented in the pie chart is a little bit more diverse group, right, than we would have had before. And there's some people who are sitting in, assistant roles at this point in time who would look to take that next step who are participating in the group as well.
Absolutely, thank you. This is fantastic, and also the right thing to be doing at this time. So thank you.
It just leads to a culture, right? It's a public school, but yet it has a little bit of a I'm gonna say a corporate feel, but not, I don't wanna use that word, but it's succession planning. Like, when you go to any, you always wanna know, Tom and I were, Mary Colleen were just talking about this, right? You wanna know that you're able to grow, and not be stagnant, because people do come and they're go-getters and they wanna do different things, so, yeah, tremendous.
I agree, and the opportunity for professional development to mean something in concrete, tangible terms, as opposed to just learning new stuff and not necessarily being able to apply it, is terrific.
Thank you.
Okay, turn it back over to you, Lynn.
Well, thank you. It looks like we have one action item. I believe this is a return of some funds.
Credit change.
Yep. Capital project change order, was lowered by about $14,000, I believe. Yep, 14,000 and change. And I went through and I couldn't quite tell where we got the money back, but it was just the
It's
whole thing.
undue, just between
Yeah.
allowances and after we
Yep.
true up all the contracts.
Yep.
Yep,
So I am happy to
Just
support that.
unspent, right?
correct.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to approve the capital project change order? Deanna is first and Tom is second. All in favor? Are you raising your hand, Naomi?
Yes, I am raising my
All
hand.
right. Thank you very much. Actually, in all seriousness, can you put it back on the
Yeah,
screen
no.
because I actually have to see her for the vote?
And, remember she was,
There we go.
There you are.
All right, raise your hand. There you go. Thank you. 6 in favor. The motion passes. Before we do go to the order, would our Senate representatives, and congratulations again on color guard, would our Senate reps like to give any updates?
So the applications deadline for the 2025-2026 Senate term was due last Saturday, and we're currently going over the deadline and like the requirements for next year. And all senators had to have at least 20 community hours of service, 10 in Senate, 10 outside of Senate, as well as 3 or 4 written questions expressing their interest and like why they think they would be a good member of the student body.
Yeah, and obviously we're still working on the 75th anniversary. That's a really big thing. So we have our booth, we're emailing clubs, emailing teachers, the alumni, getting all those photos together. And then also we have like some banners that we're gonna put around the school so students know about the event.
Thank you.
We're also having tour guide applications as well. So
For the day of the event?
for the day of the event.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. For the good of the order, shout outs, I just want to reiterate that Shen Science Night was fantastic. I was there for 2 hours and I don't think I saw everything. Internal, external, there's so many companies and universities and students that participated and donated their time and expertise. So thank you. I think it was the best one yet, and I'm sure that Jean Roach is going to have the next best one next year.
I'm curious, did they ever count on how many attended? Because it was long. It felt more so than usual, but maybe.
I don't know. Well, they give out tickets,
yeah, I don't know.
so there might be some sort of proxy for that, but I don't know.
Really well done.
Yeah.
They had a great team.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I just have a question. Has there been a schedule published for the 75th anniversary day?
Yes, and I sent something Friday bulletin as well. We're in the process of hammering out the details, but there's a flyer that gives some sense of what programs and those kind of things. So I sent something.
Timeline of
Yeah,
who
yeah.
we're in placement?
So as we go through the weeks and we hammer out specific presenters, that will be a part of it. There's one sheet that Becky Carmen and Julian Badessa and some other folks are working on, gives it, I sent a copy in Friday bulletin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if he's on the road show, he brings a stack with him too, the PTAs.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, seeing nothing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening. Carla is first, Tom is second. All in favor?
So there was first, Carla and Tom.
Carla and Tom. All in favor, 6 in favor. Motion passes. Thank you all for coming. Have a great night.
Thanks, Naomi.
You're welcome. Good night, all.